Dave brought out one of the central points of practicing and walking the path of Kriya Yoga, that you have to do it with your own love and sense of self-offering. And I'd like to touch on a few other aspects of this. Some weeks ago in India, and I'm sure it made the news over here as well, though probably in a different way, there was an eclipse of the sun. And as it happened in India, it passed right over where we were staying in Pune at the time. And those of you who have read about this in the news know, especially in the Western press and the Western media, everyone loves to examine the bizarre and the superstitious around these things. And there is a certain amount of superstition and bizarre understanding of eclipses, and in fact fear of eclipses. And what I finally realized is that people are afraid of the unknown. But we had a very insightful astrologer who is a Kriya describe some of the inner aspects of what an eclipse is and the opportunity that it offers. And he said very simply, an eclipse is a tremendous opportunity to go within. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try this out. You know, eclipses come and eclipses go, and I don't pay that much attention to them, but there's going to be one going over my head on Wednesday morning at sunrise. It was a very interesting timing because it basically meant that the rising sun was going to be eclipsed. It's a very unusual and a very strong eclipse, very unusual configuration. So we got up a little bit earlier on that morning so that we would be meditating right at the most intense time of the eclipse. And in fact, it was a delightful and beautiful, wonderful time to go inside. It was a very deep and powerful, very unusual meditation. It had a very otherworldly quality about it. But I mention the story because we are accustomed to, it's part of human nature to be afraid of the unknown. And Swamiji in the Festival of Light says, even shadow, let's see, even fear like shadows on a statue gives light and substance to hope. But there's another line about the unknown. Find peace in the peace awaits you in the unknown. There it comes. And this is the truth for each of us on the path of Kriya Yoga, because Dave was describing and repeating what Swamiji was saying about looking into the spiritual eye from our present point of reference, which is the ego, and it has its physical counterpart. Well, we are all of us, in a sense, walking into the unknown. And naturally, there's a certain amount of fear associated with that. In India, the fear is that something bad will happen because there is an eclipse, and it's this negative aspect astrologically is the way they look at it. And so people get very worried and very anxious about it. But in fact, what I felt inside was that it has nothing to do with the outside world. It's an opportunity for blessing on the inside. And since most people can't relate to that at all, they get very, very afraid of it. But when I felt the blessing in the meditation, it was a very benevolent feeling. It was a very friendly, a very familiar feeling. It was not something bizarre and strange. It was just the most natural thing. Go within, find God's presence inside of us. And this is how we must all walk the spiritual path. And I'd like to give another analogy in reference to this. Years ago, I had an uncle, my father's oldest brother, who, among many other talents, was a piano tuner. And he would, when he would visit our home every year or every other year, he would always go down to the piano and he would tune it for us. And he tuned it by ear. He didn't have one of these fancy electronic machines that would help you to dial in each note. Well, each note on a piano has 3 strings, and you have to tune each separate string. You have to separate them, get the 2 to be silent so you can work on the one that you're working on. And you gradually work your way up the piano from middle C and then down the piano from middle C. What's interesting about it, and why I mention it, is because you have to keep referring to the place where you started. You have to keep going back to an original point of reference, which in this case is middle C. You get middle C right on, or A, as the case may be, right on with a tuning fork, and then you work your way up. But you don't just go note to note to note to note all the way up, referring only to the previous note. You also refer back to the point of reference. And in the case of the path of Kriya Yoga, we go back to the beginning steps that we have to pass on the path. Those steps are yama and niyama. These are the 10 commandments of yoga. 5 things to avoid, 5 things to emphasize. And the other week in Delhi, about 2 weeks ago, we were teaching a beginning level meditation class. And in the beginning level, we focus on the basic techniques and the basic philosophies around them, so that but then a lot of practical tips for how to integrate these things into daily life. We aren't able to spend a long time on the yamas and niyamas. We mention them briefly, we list them out on the blackboard, but we don't spend a long time going into them. That comes later on in the next level when people are interested. But we always mention them because you have to get to the point where all of those qualities are basically in place. Non-lying, non-stealing, non-sensuality, non-covetousness, non-violence. Thank you. And then the 5 good qualities: contentment, cleanliness, devotion, introspection, discipline, or austerity. And there are higher octaves, to use the musical analogy. There's the basic level, ahimsa, nonviolence, that Gandhi practiced. We start off with the level that says it's not a good idea to kill people. It's not a good idea to break the chair over your little brother's head, even though he may deserve it, and you are convinced that he deserves it. Okay, we get the basic level in place. But there are higher octaves, and I mentioned this to the class. You have to start somewhere, but the higher octave of nonviolence would be that you don't speak in such a way as to hurt people. Speaking isn't hurting them physically, but it may hurt their spirit, which may be far more damaging than anything you could do physically. And finally, it goes into higher and higher levels where you are not harboring violent emotions. You aren't having harmful vibrations or entertaining harmful vibrations in yourself, because those are violent even to your own nature. You're not wishing harm on anyone. All of these are higher levels. Now, as we go along in the path of Kriya, we come to experiences that are beyond our own past. They're beyond what we remember. And in order to know, in order to understand, in order to feel guidance, we have to refer back. And we have to re-examine those first principles, and those first principles being yama, niyama. Because as we progress, those things should progress as well. Our understanding of cleanliness. Cleanliness begins by keeping the body clean, fine. But what about the subtler levels of it? Keeping the heart clean, keeping the vibration clean, and then they begin to overlap, and you see that you are also accomplishing nonviolence by cleanliness. You are also, devotion itself, Master used to say, is the greatest cleanser. They begin to interweave with each other, and you find that these things are all headed in the same direction. But it's important to keep our feet on the ground to make sure the foundation is strong. And so we always emphasize these things at the beginning of the path. Get the 10 Commandments straight and pay attention to them. Get the foundation strong. Work on asana. Make sure your posture is straight and comfortable so that it does not impede you later on. These are sort of like prerequisites for the higher level college courses that follow. Learn pranayama. Learn to control not just the breath, not just physical energy, but learn to control the energy in your life. Balancing your checkbook is an act of pranayama. Paying off your credit card bill is an act of pranayama. Making sure the finances in the ashram work out is group pranayama. And a good challenge too, I might add. Pratyahara, learning to draw the energy back within and claim it and give it to God. And all of these things precede the level of dharana, concentration. When we learn the techniques of meditation and we sit and we practice, what's the first thing that happens? The body gets restless and the mind wanders. And every class that I've ever taught, I think, certainly around India, someone sooner or later raises his hand and says, "But my mind wandered." And I said, "Yeah, your mind wandered. And remember the Eightfold Path and how the first 5 steps lead you to the point where now you're ready to concentrate? If you faithfully follow those steps, those 5 steps, you cannot help but concentrate. The mind will be so obedient and so at rest if you have followed those first steps that it can't help but focus. And it is intensely joyful when you experience that state. And then the 7th step beyond concentration is meditation itself, absorption in God, absorption in one of the aspects of God, light, sound, calmness, peace, love, power, energy, and sound. These things are all ways, and every scripture in the world describes God coming to the seeker in these various ways. Came to Moses in a burning bush, the sound of many waters. These things are woven into the scripture and mystical lore of religion everywhere. When we come to the point where we learn how to concentrate, then it's very natural to place our focus, to absorb ourselves into one or more of these qualities. But we must live these things. The title of today's class is The Path of Kriya Yoga. And we walk this path not just inside of our meditation room. We walk this path in our daily life as well. And God didn't put us on this world just to go off and live in a cave and have a blissful experience. And isn't it wonderful? God also gave us families and jobs, responsibilities, bills to pay, things to do, people to serve, an example to set for this world. Dave was saying how our meditation changes the world. This is actually literally and statistically true. A very minute percentage of any area, any city, for example, any grouping of people, if there are meditators in that group, you will find that statistically the crime rates are lower, statistically there is more harmony, business is better, etc. These are outward manifestations of something that is an inward reality, but they are true. And each of us here, and many, many thousands of others who are following this path of Kriya Yoga, we have a duty. We have a responsibility to live these things, to share whatever blessings that God has given us. I've often had the thought that blessings are like fruit salad. It doesn't last a long time, and you better give it away, give some of it away to others, because you can't keep it around forever. Once you cut the fruit, now you have to eat it. God gives us blessings not for ourselves. He gives them to us to share with other people. And it doesn't mean that we have to hit them over the head with them, but in some natural way, even to smile, even to share your feeling of upliftment. There's a line, I believe it was from Swami's book, Do It Now, which he's now reworked into Do It Well. But in that, he said, don't impose your moods on other people, even positive ones. Give them the space to define their own feelings. What a wonderfully respectful attitude. So sometimes you have to do these things a little bit from a distance, because you can't just go around with a big, wide, toothy smile and inflict it on everybody. But your very being will speak. What you are speaks louder than anything that you say. And watching Swamiji over these years, watching our Guru Bhais here, our brothers and sisters on the path, we see tremendous examples of this. And it is up to us. The Guru can lead us, he can help us, but he does not walk the path for us. Each of us has to walk this path with our own effort, as Dave said, with our own devotion, and offer it to God. But when we do, the blessings that we can receive and the blessings that we can share with the world are undreamed of. Master said, in God, your wildest dreams will come true. Let us experience that, and let us share that with others.